Printer is coming. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Today, welcome back Sam, who's been all over the recent talk from Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Wow, did he just flip the entire higher for longer narrative in a single press conference? How are you going today, Sam?
Yeah, good. It seems like he did.
So
Quite a surprise.
Well, yeah, it sort of caught everyone. Well, not necessarily caught everyone off guard, but it was a big mover and interesting for the markets. The FOMC statement and the press conference this morning. Let's start off with what was the big news out of that.
Well, the big news was the Fed revised the 2024 dot plot. So it was 5.1. They revised it to 4.6. So that's indicating they're looking for a 50 basis point cut or 50 basis points of easing coming up next year. So it's more than expected. And it looks like Powell just didn't try to fight the markets at all.
That's fascinating because you would have to think that up until now, the narrative has been that he is going to fight the market. So is this a credibility issue here? Like what, how does that play?
Well, pretty much, yeah, because it's looking like the markets were they're still pricing in 127 basis points in easing, but the market's always been more aggressive than Powell. To be fair, look, they've been wrong all year, essentially, but now they're a little bit redeemed, but not entirely.
Is it the situation where the market was bound to get it right eventually, a broken clock right, twice a day type thing?
Yeah, so markets just kept going up despite high interest rates and holding on for longer. They kept getting Powell incorrect, but finally it looks like the pendulum's starting to swing the other way. So yeah.
And do you think just continuing on that idea of the market here, do you think that the market how does it play that now? Like, is it over? Is this the end of that move, or is this just the beginning of that move? How do you look at it?
If it's just going to keep going up?
Yeah, like if how the market has been interpreting this whole way, as you were just saying, like, it's been ahead. Does this then cause the market to flip the other way to look for it to actually go higher? How does the market sort of interpret this in your mind?
It's kind of hard to say because markets are so ADHD recently that any little bit of news causes, it causes people to just do these day trades. And I guess with gold, it benefits from the fear of a crash as well as inflation. So it's seems good long term for gold in the medium to long term. But as far as the stock market and things like that, it's like anyone's just looking to make a trade. Especially if you look at these big caps like Nvidia and these other stocks, people are out of options. They just want to make money, so they're looking for the biggest swimming pool to throw their investment in, where they know they can actually do some momentum trading and pull out a little bit of money. And the markets are just very ADHD. So if you look at, things aren't all at all-time high. Some things are at new highs, but I think the double dip recession potential is still there, as we talked about before.
Yeah, and that's a good point because you've been talking about that quite a bit, and it's certainly been a narrative that has been counter to what the market has been saying. But you've been really highlighting, well, we've hit those sort of key levels where we'd expect a pullback. So, do you think that the possibility is still there, something's still on the cards? Because that seems to be what you're alluding to.
Yeah, I really don't see how anything's changed in the long term. It just looks like, because obviously we talked about the market's still, pretty far off what Jerome Powell's saying he's doing. Who knows? Maybe he'll concede more. It's hard to say. But again, as we always talk, the crash comes after the pivot. We haven't had the pivot yet, but the markets don't care. They just want to make quick money now. So that's all that matters.
And is that part of an end of year? Because I've heard people talk about this as well, this idea that if you're a manager, a big fund manager, you only get paid on your returns, particularly in the US, your returns for the calendar year. So a lot of them who might have missed the boat earlier are doing exactly what you just described, throwing, chasing anything they can to make those returns so they get paid at the end of the day. Does that come into play in your mind as well?
Yeah, that does. And also you have to look at people anticipating what's called the Santa Claus rally, where the last couple of weeks of the year, usually there's a bit of a bull run in everything. And one of the major reasons for that is not only the increased spending, people are all going out and buying things, which creates a lot of liquidity, which we don't really see in January afterward. But there's a lot of liquidity created. And then also the other thing is these big predatory shorters, these people who go on and you think, oh, now looks like a good time to buy. And then it starts, racing downwards. The people who do that are off in the Bahamas or somewhere having their Christmas holiday. They're not on Wall Street shorting the market and making your trades go backwards. So that's another reason for the end of year rally that often happens.
And people do need to be cautious of that. I know I've experienced that a number of years myself, where when we really get past next week, even the volume is very thin because, as you said, all the big money's left town. They're off on holidays, and you can get moves, but often they're not sustained. They're not real. They're just sort of people playing around with the little bit of liquidity that's there. So it is a bit of a danger time going into those last couple of weeks if you don't know what you're doing, I suppose.
Yeah, a lot of it's retail traders, and what retail traders do is buy. That's it. So they just know how to buy up the stock market, and then they think it's going to go up forever. And then come January, the big traders come off holiday and expose those weaknesses and start to short things that are overheated.
Yep, and scoop up bargains in their mind of the little retail fish they can get in their net. I can see that for sure. So bringing this back around to the Fed, obviously this is where all this is coming from, that change in rhetoric from Powell. Do you think that they ultimately are going to change their forecast anytime soon? Do you think this is just like a little bit of a one-off from Jerome Powell? Is it, are we heading for a very different 2024? How do you interpret what you think the Fed is going to do next?
Well, the reassuring part is they did hold strong for a long time, not that the markets cared, but the really scary part is that a lot of them already changed their way halfway through, changed their minds halfway through the FOMC meeting, apparently. So what happened, because the meeting was across 2 days, was halfway through the meeting, some PPI data came out, and then a bunch of Fed officials decided to change their projections, which is pretty scary because talking about ADHD markets, it's one thing if you're a retail investor trying to make a quick buck, or if you're, a big institution trying to catch a swing on momentum. But if you're a Fed official, if you're trying to be, you're trying to stabilize the economy, and you're taking every little pinch of data that comes out and flipping the script on your long-term plan, that's quite scary.
Well, that's concerning from many levels, as you've highlighted. But when you think the whole point was about building this conviction, building this integrity in the Fed knowing what they're doing, changing your mind halfway through the meeting, certainly, like, it has to undermine that confidence, surely.
Yeah, and based on a little bit of PPI data as well, that is very
It's not the be all and end all of data there. So that's not great for the credibility of the Fed, but probably it is fuel for market participants celebrating that we told you, you don't believe the Fed. I mean, that's the reality of it, isn't it?
Yeah, so we'll see what happens if they change their mind again. They did beat on some of the same tired old points we've been talking about, every month, which is, U.S. banking system strong and resilient, and employment, etc. But it looks like we've finally reached a point where things are starting to swing in the other direction.
Fascinating times. Well, like you said, we can't put too much weight on these last few weeks of the year, but we'll be watching nonetheless, and we'll see what happens as we approach 2024, and the big boys come back from holidays. We'll see how it all unfolds then. So thank you for that today, Sam.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll chat again soon.